Player 3 here, winding the clock back to 1986. This is the oldest game I've played so far in this series, and also the first game of which I had played as a kid. It's Defender of the Crown. Now, though I said I'd played it before, the version I played for this video was on the Amiga, and the version I had played as a kid was on the NES, and they are quite different. I was also never able to get a hang of it, and therefore never got very far into the game as a kid. I also never realized just how big of a game it was at the time, so let's go take a look. Defender of the Crown was the first game created by Cinemaware. You might know them as the developers of It Came From the Desert, another game I've played on this channel. Cinemaware was founded by husband and wife Robert and Phyllis Jacob back in 1985, after Robert had conceptualized the idea of a game development studio that produced interactive movies of sorts deriving from his love of cinema. Each game drawing you into different classic movie genres, allowing you to feel as if you are role-playing as the main character of a movie. Soon after their founding, at the end of January 1986, Cinemaware struck a distribution deal with Mindscape to have their first game delivered to them by October 15th of that year, so they could be on shelves in time for Christmas. So, they got to work. They signed a deal with Sculptured Software to program the game, and through that met Jim Sachs, a self-taught programmer of only a few years, who quickly became art director. In June, after discovering how behind the team was at Sculptured, Robert hired John Cutter. He then removed Sculptured from the project entirely, leaving their next game, SDI, for them to work on, while Robert called up Amiga legend R.J. Michael, the creator of Amiga's UI Intuition, co-designer of the Amiga, and co-developer of Graphicraft. Robert offered RJ $26,000 if he could take all of the art by Jim Sachs, the idea and designs for the game from Robert and Kellen Beek, and the music from Jim Cuomo, essentially tasking RJ to make the entire game himself in 3 months. And RJ's response? I'm your man. Though this would kind of bite Robert in the ass, both Jim Sachs and RJ Michael felt that Robert wasn't clear on his vision for the game or the workload and time frame that came with it, thus leading to many elements being cut from the initial Amiga release. But it was done, and on time, as Cinemaware's first game. Along with Randy McDonald's direction on the iconic cover art, Defender of the Crown was ready to play. So let's check it out. First, taking a look at the game manual. Upon opening it, the first page introduces the company as Master Designer Software rather than Cinemaware, the legal name for the company being as such, and them utilizing the name Cinemaware as the descriptor for their cinema-based video games, though everyone came to know the company as simply Cinemaware for its duration, having only developed games within that cinema-based genre and having a relatively short lifespan. There was never a reason for them to be known as Master Designer Software. Looking further into the manual, Robert and Phyllis have written us a letter describing the company, and what you are to expect from future games. Then we get into a brief synopsis of the story behind the game and each element within it, written as though you are the ruler and your counsel is describing the situation. I've never seen a game manual written in this manner. It is neat, but at times it was hard to follow. In between these instruction elements are real-world historical tales centered around the setting of our historical fiction game. Beyond all the instructions is a section about the movies that inspired the game, mainly the movies of Robin Hood and Ivanhoe. Then finally, a list of books for you to learn more about the era and tales the game is based on, a letter from Kellen Beek on how the game came to be, and a map of England as depicted in the game. Upon opening the game itself, we have a very regal-sounding theme song. It's a bit loud. Okay, wow, it gets louder. Why? You will notice among the list of developers, RJ Michael is not one of them. He specifically requested to have his name left out as he was unhappy with the result, having felt so rushed to do so in only 3 months. As the intro continues to play, it introduces all of the characters we can play as, along with our Norman enemies and ladies we might get the opportunity to save, listed as the cast, further emphasizing the cinema motif. And here is the setting. In the year of our Lord 1149, when the king returned from the Holy Land, he knighted 6 great warriors who had carried him to victory over the infidels. The king's subjects crowded into the palace to see him grant power, wealth, and vast dominions to each of... Oh, okay. I wasn't reading that slowly, but I'm no speed reader either. But that won't be the last time that the game expects me to be one. Now we choose a character. Each one has a unique set of skills, the worst skill set being listed as weak, then average, good, then strong. I realize now looking at my footage that nobody has a weak skill set, but if you choose Cedric of Rotherwood, beyond this selection screen, he is listed as having a weak swordplay ability. This selection screen must be incorrect then, or I suppose the in-game one could be incorrect. But I couldn't tell. All the variations of skill change only slightly, and my main choice was Geoffrey Longsword, as I learned that raiding and having strong swordplay was crucial, though it took me many attempts to learn this. Among these skill sets, swordplay being for the raiding of castles that takes place in the game, I believe equating to how large your health bar is rather than the swordplay itself. Nothing is very clear in the manual. Jousting, which equates to jousting of course, and the better the stat, the less the lance bobs up and down during the joust, therefore making it either easier or harder to aim for your opponent's shield. Then leadership, which I really am not sure what this equates to in the game. Maybe it's how well your army does in battle with an opposing army? That's my best guess. But let's look at my first playthrough, in which I choose Wilfred of Ivanhoe. From what I can remember as a kid playing this on the NES, I always enjoyed the jousting part, and I remember raiding castles, but I always failed, because I never understood how the sword fighting worked. Beyond that, I don't remember anything else, and never finished a game, so I especially don't remember this here, being greeted by Robin Hood. At least seeing him in person as this. But into the playable portion now. Every turn consists of showing our leader's stats, our income gained this turn, and the amount we now hold in our treasury along with the current month and year, each turn taking place over the course of 1 month. Each turn plays out somewhat similar to Risk, by building your army per turn. The more land you have, the more you gain per turn, then acquiring new land or fighting to take land from an opponent. That is the conquest portion from your orders list. You can also read the map, where you can learn the names of your opponents and what color corresponds to their territory, building your army, which is the only action that when played through will not end your turn. Here you build whatever troop units you want, or castle depending on how much gold is in your treasury. Besides your start of turn gold acquisition, you can gain gold from raiding opposing castles, or gain land from jousting. The object of the game being to remove all of the Norman players from the game, those being the reddish colored territories, while your Saxon allies are bluish colored. Though the Saxons are your allies, this does not prevent them from attacking your conquest army, or vice versa, nor does it prevent them from taking some of your land. But, however, they cannot take your home castle, for once that is taken, you lose the game. And once you take an enemy capital home castle, they too will be out of the game, and you inherit all of the territories they held. You could do the same to your Saxon allies, take their home castle, but why would you do that? They're kind of helping you. On my first playthrough, I spent most of my gold on building soldiers, saving a few to later build a knight, hopefully next turn. Then I built a conquest army. Whatever I didn't put in my conquest army stays at my home castle to defend it. The conquest army is represented by the horse and rider. Being able to move to an unknown territory through my own one at a time, or return home. I took the one to my right. Then an NPC player called for a tournament. You can do so yourself as long as you have at least 5 gold in your treasury. I swear, I'm doing a better job explaining the game than the manual could have ever dreamed of right now. At this point, I wish I had read the map, because I have no clue who is what name, like where they are on the map, so I just started clicking names and didn't realize which were Saxon or Norman. That sucks because right now none of the Normans had territory outside of the capital, their home castle, so I couldn't joust for the acquisition of land, only fame. And I have no clue what fame gets you, other than just being able to joust anyone, because this is part of the game and it's fun. It's also pretty hard. You aim with your mouse side to side and up and down, aiming for the shield. Then as the lance bobs up and down, you have to determine where the lance tip will be once it contacts the shield. Jousting consists of 3 rounds, or until you lose a joust. A couple turns later, I got this message. Well, of course I have to rescue her. Oh no, I have to do the same actions as if I was raiding a castle. I have no clue how this swordplay works. So, the manual says, first, the moment to thrust is when your opponent is off balance, his sword in motion away from yours. Second, you must always keep moving. Keep your opponent off balance and he'll be unable to anticipate your blows. The remaining 70% of the swordplay section is just flavor text and not helpful for how to play. So all I can do here is click the left mouse button and extend my sword and attack. I guess then I'm supposed to do it at the moment when my opponents pull their sword away from me. There's no health bar, so the best I can tell that I'm doing it right is when I am pushing my opponent backwards. And when I attack, I click not constantly, but in random bursts. I just don't get it. But it works at least 50% of the time here, and when I play as Jeffrey Longsword, who has strong swordplay, it works probably 80% of the time. If it works, don't fix it. But anyways, I did it. I rescued the Saxon lady. Oh my, what is this cutscene? This can't have been in the NES version. Wow, hold on. That is amazing pixel art for 1986. Good job, Jim Sachs. Oh god, they're naked. Oh yeah, it's a shadow, but oh, is she grabbing his... Oh, no, it's just their hands. But my god, I did not expect that in the slightest from my medieval Risk-like computer game. So now Rebecca here is my wife, I think. Not sure how that changes things for me, but she's there. So I covered reading the map, check. Building an army, check. Jousting, check. Raiding, well, the same thing as rescuing the lady, but you get gold and there is no sex scene, so check, I suppose. Then that leaves Conquest, which I did cover most of it, but now I just have to win, or at least finish the game. And attacking other Conquest armies and castles is what I have left to explain as well. Well, it doesn't take long until I bump into another Conquest army. My options are Ferocious Attack, Stand and Fight, and Wild Retreat. While I'm not sure the difference in how to play out with the two fighting options, but Retreat of course means I pull out of the fight, which you want to do pretty much immediately once you see your opponent has a larger force than you, or your force will probably be slaughtered. Oh well, I'll know for next time. Moving ahead, a couple raids and jousts later, I had to leave, but there was no save option, so when I came back I had to start over. No biggie. I probably wasn't going to win that one anyways. Picking Wilfred again and still not realizing that I shouldn't attack my Saxon allies, 15 minutes in, it wasn't looking too good, and Philip ended up absolutely destroying me. Okay, third time's the charm. Let's choose Wulfric this time. Oh, lovely, that's new. Norman rogues ambush me and take some of my gold. Great! Yeah, this playthrough went even worse. Okay, fourth try. Okay, fifth try. Okay, seventh, finally. But the game glitched, I guess. I'm supposed to win once all of the Norman players have been defeated, but the game wouldn't end until I defeated all the Saxon players as well. That's not supposed to happen. Okay, ninth try. This is the one. I played as Jeffrey again. It got a little sketchy at one point, but I did it. I even got the girl. So, upon trying to acquire an enemy castle, as long as you have bought a catapult and put it in your conquest army, you get this siege section to perform first before the rest of your army attacks. Oh yeah, you also get aid from Robin Hood too if you want. But in the siege portion here, it's really difficult to aim your catapult in the right spots to damage the castle walls, but it's not bad once you get the hang of it. It just takes a while. But the more you destroy, the less your enemy will have to defend with once the rest of your army attacks. Or at least I'm pretty sure that's how it works, because every time I completely destroyed an enemy castle wall, my army was fighting against armies of 0. That's it. I won. I'm the new king. But where's the crown? It was lost after the old king died. Oh, ha! That goofy bastard Robin. He stole it to keep it safe. Wow. Ha! Alright, the end. So, how did it do on release? Insanely well, actually. It pushed the boundary for visual quality in video games for the time. RJ Michael looked back on this moment, praising Jim Sachs's pixel art, saying, "What a god he is." 20 years ago, it was astonishing to have someone that good. It was reported that by 1989 the game had sold more than 250,000 copies, and by 2001 had surpassed 1 million. This was from the culmination of all the ported versions of the game, as this was CinemaWare's most ported game. And with each one beyond the Amiga, it arguably got better, as the Amiga being the first iteration, as I stated before, was a rushed product and many aspects were left out. The Atari ST port, being the first port to add a battle screen during the Conquest Army battles, included more fight options and was also the first to include a health bar during the raiding sequences. The NES port, which I was originally familiar with, had lower quality graphics than many of the other ports, but did include health bars during the raiding sequences. The jousting sequence was simplified and added a flail battle sequence after the rider was knocked off their horse. And just as I thought, Nintendo cut out the sex scene for their version. Regardless of which version you've played or choose to play, the game at its core has done very well. Some say the Atari ST version was the most complete, and therefore the best port. But the Amiga had probably the best graphics of any version. I usually strive to play the original release, as I did with this one, playing the Amiga version. Back to the reception, critics loved this game, and all rated it very highly. But as successful as Defender of the Crown was, RJ Michael and Jim Sachs, having felt overworked and misinformed, would never work with CinemaWare again. And though I enjoyed the game beyond the stunning graphics, it wasn't all that great. Therefore, I'm giving the game a 6 out of 10, which in fact is better than I speculated before playing it. It's certainly not a bad game. It was very simple and quite enjoyable. Maybe I will have to play the Atari version and see which one I prefer, but as for the Amiga version, 6 out of 10. It is my favorite game so far in the turn-based strategies category, my second favorite Amiga game, behind It Came From the Desert, another CinemaWare game, and my favorite game from 1986, seeing as it is the only one from that year that I've played so far. Anyways, I hope you've enjoyed this video, and I hope you'll enjoy what I have in store. If you have any game recommendations, feel free to leave them in the comments below. That's all for now. See you next time.